Zack Semke, director of Passive House Accelerator and co-host of the Passive House podcast with Matthew Cutler Welsh. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded as part of the 25th International Passive House Conference, which occurred online in September 2021. Before we get started with this episode's interview, I'd like to thank the Passive House Institute and the International Passive House Association for collaborating with us to arrange these interviews. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors who make the podcast possible. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingwe Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Rockwell North America, Stillcorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsors are Icon Windows and Doors and SIGA. And our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. With that, please enjoy my interview with Ron Beattie, head of Beattie Passive in the UK. Ron Beattie, thank you very much for joining me for this conversation. This is a special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded in conjunction with the International Passive House Conference. So welcome, Ron.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So could you start by introducing yourself and Beattie Passive and your work?
Certainly, yeah. Ron Beattie, Managing Director and founder of Beattie Passive. Beattie Passive is a new build and retrofit building system that I created some 11 years ago to lift the standard of building across every element. And one of those elements I was very passionate about was the energy efficiency. And Passive House and always felt was the way to go. So I created a system that delivers Passive House by default standard across both new build and retrofit. And it's I suppose it's the cornerstone of what we deliver. So it's also about young people and training and how we can build Passive House at scale. So everything we've done from our early days, going back now sort of 10 years, 11 years ago, was to establish a building system that will be certified by the Institute, and then grow on that to find out how we can deliver that across, as I say, all new build spectrums, from stick built on site through to full modular, and now doing both again as off-site manufacture and on-site manufacture for retrofit. So quite a broad spectrum, but one that's growing across the UK and across many countries.
Yeah, and such important work. So, and what's the size of your firm, and what's the...
Okay, so we're still reasonably small. We're patented in, managed the patent system, and we're patented in 44 countries around the world.
Great.
So we've got great aspirations. We want to change construction and deliver Passive House into many corners of the world. We currently are working for around between the sort of 10 to 12 million pound mark a year, but that's growing massively. And we've got plans to expand this year and over the next 5 years for 13 new modular factories and deliver some 1,000 homes in retrofit going over the next 5 years. So it's growing. And I'm pleased to say that Passive House is becoming a well-known product in the UK, which is wonderful.
That is wonderful. It must be really exciting to be writing that and to be at the kind of at the forefront of that, surfing that wave.
Absolutely, it's becoming something that we're finding that lots of the councils and housing associations are now really wanting to hang their hat on Passive House, which is wonderful. And of course, it's a new trade for many construction purposes. So we've got an academy where we train people to build a Beattie Passive system and retrofit. So it's about growing that family, and getting more young people into the industry to know about how to build a Passive House standard.
Yeah. And you presented at the conference as part of the Prefabricated Retrofit panel, and our interview today is closing up this little series of interviews from the conference. And the first one that I conducted was with Rainer Pfluger, who also presented as part of that panel, and he's at University of Innsbruck and has been really involved in Outfit. So can you share some of the key messages, key points that you were presenting at
Yes.
that panel?
Yeah,
I'd love to hear that.
absolutely. Yeah, that was around one of our recent Retrofit projects, which was a block of flats in a place called Great Yarmouth in East Anglia, UK. And there we had a 1950s block where we put our tea cozy, which we call it, over the top of the building. That one we couldn't get access, so there wasn't access for off-site manufacture for the facades. That was actually an on-site facade, but it creates a void of 300 mil void on the external and on the roof. And we pump that with insulation that gives us a continuous insulated envelope. So we've got no cold bridges, we've got very low U values of 0.11 and an air tightness of below 1 there on that project. MVHR systems go in the void and they're prefixed to the building. And then it becomes a very simple operation to actually get your air tightness and your thermability because you're not trying to seal panels that you can't see. So in other ways, we've now been monitoring that for a year, and in fact, the last winter, a client rang up and said that the gas board had rang them and asked them why they're not using any gas because they're not using any heating. One of the other great things about that project was that one of the clients had 200 animals in their apartment, and the smell was unbelievable. It was really unhealthy, and they'd living with gerbils and cats and dogs and anything. But once the MVHR has gone on, once it's been running, it's been incredible that when we revisited that place, you wouldn't believe that there was 200 animals in there. And the standard of living and the quality of air quality is amazing. And I think that, like all these things, when you do realize how good the air quality in Passive House, how that does for your health, it's amazing. So it's a great project, and we've got many more planned. We're just about to start now design work, or have been working on design work for the Grenville Tower estate. That was the big fire that went up and started all the cladding issues.
Tragic.
And we've been chosen the design system to actually reclad 2,500, potentially 2,500 units around that estate. Wow. And we're also now working with the bigger construction companies to start working on quite a few retrofits across the UK. So very exciting times for the retrofit in the UK.
That is super exciting. So I think the traditional challenge with retrofits to the Enerfit standard, do have to do with cost, right? So how do you make it cost?
Yeah, I mean, we've managed to bring that cost down now. It's still too expensive. We've got to get down to the sort of 50,000 pound mark for Enerfit. That includes MVHR, it includes the heating system, includes the ventilation, it includes the facades, PVs, but we're getting there. We're now at 60. And so we're seeing that starting to drop. And of course, in numbers, in time we get to start really sort of going forward in numbers, we'll see that decrease as well. So very exciting times. We've got a system now that allows you not to worry about the air tightness, not to worry about the MVHR and the way that's joint, not to worry about the insulation going together correctly, because we can do that easily. And then the facades just go on to make it look pretty. So we've been working 10 years now and innovating and trying different systems to get to this point where we feel we're fit now to start rolling out at scale. So we've got some 300 homes to retrofit in the next 6 months. So it's going to be an interesting time.
That's great. Now, do you find that it's important for the kind of the basic architecture of the projects that you are addressing to be similar to one another in order to deliver this system? Or
no?
So you can deal with diversity of
forms. It's the ones around the Grenville Tower are going back. They're 1900s blocks of flats which have got concrete walkways. They've got old railings. And the client there, Kensington Chelsea Council, want them to go back exactly the same. So that's really challenging. We've only got 38 mil between doorways and walls. So we're having to use really sort of fine insulation. We're never going to get to Enerfit on those ones. We've got to compromise on some things, but we're working on really cutting down the thermal bridges in every area to give us the opportunity to get as low as we can. But it's a compromise. Nothing's perfect when you're working with existing buildings.
No.
In our new build, which is our new build, at the moment we're building a passive block 48 apartments in Cardiff, which are Passive Plus, zero carbon. With that, of course, it's all very simple. But these are off-site manufacturers, so they're built in Norwich. They're going down to Cardiff, and they're all erected now. 1, 2, and 3 bed apartments. But we've also got our house range as well, which we're opening new factories around the country for.
Right. If you can crack the retrofit nut with your work, then I imagine going to new construction is just a piece of cake.
It is simple. It is simple. Yeah. And you're working inside. It's lovely and warm, and no rain, and a lot simpler. Right. So yeah, I mean, the great thing about it is that we've got a whole new workforce coming forward. We started our factory here a year ago with 2 operatives. We then got up in 3 months. We got up to 70. 60% of them had never held a hammer. And they're building passive houses, and that's the key to it. We need to get more young people in the industry to make it work, and it's just that simple.
Yeah, we have a really serious shortage in tradespeople in North America as well, and this is good stuff. So, what do you see on the horizon then for the firm? And I mean, you've alluded to this a little bit, but what do you see?
Yeah, well, we've got
a few years.
We've got a very ambitious goal. We want to change construction in every bit. It's not for us. Enofit and Passive House is a key member, but it's also about lifting the fire standard, the buildability, the longevity, the sustainability. Every one of our new houses is designed that it can be actually reused in the future. So one of the projects we've got is we're looking at is a Sizewell new power station, and the client came to us and said, well, we want 4,000 of accommodation units. And I said, no, what you want is 1,000 houses. They looked at me like I was a bit weird. And they said, well, no, we want 4,000 accommodation units. I said, fine, I'll design you 1,000 houses. And then what we'll do is we'll take them apart and we'll put them into 1,000 accommodation units. And then in 10 years' time, when you finish your power station, I'll have them back and I'll give them to the local authority as 1,000 houses. And then we get 1,000 affordable homes for nothing. What about that one? And that's the future of housing. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, that is pretty revolutionary.
So there's lots of things that we're doing in Beattie Passive around that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that we're expanding. We're growing on both parties now. As I say, we're starting to really roll out in the retrofit over the next year, and we'll be building more and more factories and more homes. So the idea is that we're partnering with local authorities and housing associations. We're going to get local employment, and there's no point building homes that are not giving that part of it, because the home's one thing, but how you build it is so much more important. Mm-hmm. And we're working in prisons, so we're working with young offenders and giving them a real chance in life afterwards. So big agenda, a lot to do.
Yeah, no, it sounds like what a mission. When you talk about transforming the way that buildings are built and the way that the way that we are operating as an industry, there's a famous huge effort that I won't name in North America that had very big ambitions about that and had huge funding, like billions of dollars of fund, or I don't know. I think it was a couple $1 billion of funding, frankly, that recently famously folded and didn't deliver. And
we're here. I mean, we're looking
what strikes me about what you're doing is it's a completely different approach. It's a similar goal, but it's a completely different approach where you're doing the work, you're starting small, you're doing the work as it's going, and you're proving it out with these projects, as opposed to having this like grand kind of Silicon Valley mindset to unfortunately not really accomplish anything. This is where it's at. It's great to hear.
You've got to prove it first. We've got a product that we've proven. We've got 500 homes being lived in. I've got a one I built 7 years ago, which is 8,000 square foot, where the client pays £150 a year to heat it. It's crazy. So we've done that. We set out to prove everything we do. We test it, we prove it, and then we carry on and expand it. And so, we want to come into North America. We want to work with partners. We want to grow the business. We want investment into that to make that happen. So, we know we need partners, and we're looking forward to that journey.
Yeah,
it's very,
absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, come on over.
Yeah,
we're eager to have you. This is fantastic, Ron. Is there anything else you want to add before we close up? I know you're a busy man.
It's a very exciting time for Passive House. It's a great opportunity to people to really look at the benefits of it. I think that we all kid ourselves when we think we're building to standards that are acceptable. But Passive House is one way to really push the envelope. I've been sort of building it now for 10 years of my life, so I know the pitfalls. But when you get it right, wow, it's a great home. My daughter recently lived in one of the passive houses that we built for about 6 months. She's then went off and she went to rent before she was buying a place, and she went to an old home, and she lasted 4 weeks before she said, I can't live in this thing, it's too cold, it's too drafty, it's terrible. And now we're building a part of our retrofit system. I'm taking a chalet bungalow and I'm putting an old Georgian house over the top, and she'll be walking in the door of a chalet bungalow, but in 6 months time it will be actually a Georgian house over her. So again, new ways of doing things. It's all fun.
Yeah, fantastic. Ron, this has been really inspiring and great work. Keep it up. We'll see you in North America soon, I hope.
There's lots of houses to do yet.
Yeah. All right. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.